Camera program hasn't been running for a long enough time for us to really gauge the value of the effectiveness of the program in terms of stopping red light violations. So we're still evaluating that as we move forward. It's just not enough data to come in for us to get a true assessment of that. Speed cameras, I think anyone, if you've ever driven anywhere in the city near any of the schools where these are at, you will see everyone slows down, and it serves the purpose that we wanted it to do, to protect the children around these schools. And we've actually seen that value and that benefit there. So even though there's some revenue that comes with this one, the speed cameras, it actually does exactly what we ask it to do. So, any questions for me?
No, sir.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, code amendments for chapter 238 and 240.
It's been a long day. Over the last several months, it's been mentioned several times about the need to look at our water and wastewater utilities a little differently, more from a capacity management viewpoint. So what I've started to do is to put together some code amendments, and some of the basis for those code amendments were included with the wastewater, looking at the, knowing that we did the BNR upgrades and then the ENR upgrades and the plant mission mains, maybe something dealing with capacity at the wastewater treatment plant. But I think we need to go back and maybe our rate structure's been in place since 2005, I believe. And maybe we need to say, okay, is there a better way to do this now? We've been doing it this way for this long. And while it's worked, fixed fees are getting really high. Fire code has changed significantly, and that, as Scott knows, that gets us a lot of complaints from folks that have to have a 10-inch meter that use 25 gallons of water a day, and they're paying thousands of dollars for that meter every year. So that was another idea that, or another way that I thought we could look at restructuring things. The last thing I want to mention is the joint service agreement and the flow transfer agreement. As of yesterday, the city and the county staff have come to agreement on all of those amendments. And it will be on the agenda in January. So the flow from the Mogginsville area will go back to the county, and the flow from that would have been Pump Station 13, which includes Hager's Crossing, Western Maryland Parkway, it's incorporated into that agreement, will come back to us. When we do that, we'll be doing the Pump Station 13, but also looking at pipe rehab, doing I&I, pipelining, doing I&I. So we'll get rid of a lot of extraneous flow, which will also help increase some capacity in our wastewater plant. So we'll continue to, work on those projects, but we put everybody in the same room at the same time, the attorneys, staff, and we all left, and we got the documents back today from county attorney as well as our attorney. Everybody's in agreement, and I fully expect you're going to see that in January. I've been working on that since March of 19. Wow. But that will allow us to move forward. Ink on that paper will allow us to move forward with Pump Station 13 and bringing that flow back into our system, and it'll allow the county to move forward with their Mogginsville project, which will there's a lot of extraneous flow that comes into our system from that area.
Are we going to have a net gain of reserve as opposed to?
We will have a gain in capacity, but we will have a reduction in revenue because we won't be the differential. So that's another reason we'll have to look at the rate structure. But yes, it will positively, especially when we have those storm events where the plant will spike to 30 million gallons. So which counts against our load, So getting that I&I out of there is very important, so we will. So I know I went through that really quick. I know
Great.
we've had a long day. So they're my ideas. My question, yeah, I have two questions. One, are you good with me moving forward with those ideas?
Yes.
And my other question is, do you guys have any ideas, anything additional that you want me to try to work into it? Kathy and I will be working together with the comp plan and the MRGA and even code, but if you have any ideas, even if they come later, I'd appreciate that feedback.
I'll probably send you some stuff.
Okay, that would be perfect.
You can ask Kristen.
Well, we'll be sending you,
You can ask him separate.
yeah, we'll be sending it together, I can guarantee.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's not the same room.
Thank God he's not here today.
My mama told me a long time ago, sometimes the best thing you can say is absolutely nothing, so I'm just going to plead the fifth right now. Absolutely nothing.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Nancy.
Nancy.
Thank you.
All right, up next we have the review of ideas and options for a proposed new farmer's market.
We will be here.
Good afternoon, and I want to reintroduce Kathleen Miller, who serves as our Farmers Market Coordinator, and she was in front of you within the past 6 months or so with an update on the farmers market. So we're here tonight to talk about ideas and options for a proposed new farmers market, and in recognition of the fact that the current property at 25 West Church Street is under contract for sale. So the idea of exploring options for the creation of a new farmers market as we look to navigate that transition with the expectation that the property will be going to settlement. What we're seeking today is a discussion on some options, and what we would like is some direction for either a single preferred option for us to explore further, or preferred options, so that we can come back to you with more information or dive into more detail based on getting some direction tonight. So we've outlined a couple of options. The first in your packet is the idea of a seasonal outdoor farmers market to be held, as most seasonal farmers markets are held in the timeframe of May to September or May to October, a 5 to 6 month timeframe. Some location options that we've talked about at a staff level are University Plaza, having it in our downtown park. Also the potential on the Cultural Trail, and a third option being the former stables in Fairgrounds Park. And each of these have some pluses and minuses in terms of points of consideration with the location. We think the format of an outdoor seasonal farmers market would be that the city provides the space and the continuation of staff in the support of market coordination and promotions. The vendors would provide their needed equipment in the form of tents or tables. There are some farmers markets that operate without tents, so vendors can have the ability to set up fairly easily by simply bringing a table to set up. And then some other points of consideration that we're looking for feedback on is, should the new farmers market be free to the vendors or associated with a per event or a monthly fee? The days of the week could be discussed, but there is some feedback that we've received with a desire to potentially keep it on a Saturday, but there is some different ideas out there and some flexibilities to consider what day of the week we would propose this to be. And we are hearing that hours proposed could be in the range of 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. from some feedback from some of the vendors. And seeing this as the start of a new farmers market program, of which we would need to have an annual application and selection process. So looking at starting this with its own application process that may be specific to the site that we're considering. We included some additional information in your packet for the former stables at Fairgrounds Park, which is used for the yard sale on a regular basis. That the section on the site map identified with an orange line is approximately 425 feet that is scheduled for roof replacement in the spring of this year. So there is improvements happening to that facility that would help with the aesthetics, and also I think that would help with controlling rain into the stables themselves. In addition to the proposal for a seasonal outdoor farmers market, there is the idea of having pop-up indoor market events on select seasons, such as a spring or Easter season pop-up event that may happen before the start of the seasonal market. And then a holiday season event, which could be the Saturdays or a set of days from Thanksgiving to Christmas, that would happen during the holiday season after the end of a seasonal outdoor farmers market. And some options for this, and I put some dates in the memo in terms of in April or December dates in 2022. We're exploring a variety of locations for this. We haven't talked with all property owners of potential locations, but we've had a few conversations, certainly looking at proximity to downtown and the economic impact that it could have. And certainly looking at any city facilities, whether that be connected to fairgrounds or privately owned facilities in the downtown area that are also event venue spaces. For example, the Herald Mail building or the Antietam Paper building. We've also had some conversations with Goodwill about their large space in the Goodwill building that could be used for a pop-up indoor market event. We included in the packet some photos from other cities. I think the idea of a permanent pavilion structure and some of the photos, specifically the ones from Roanoke, Virginia, include permanent table structures. That any ideas related to a permanent structure would need lead time and would be far beyond 2022. But we included a few examples from other cities if the city were interested in us exploring that. But it would be far beyond what we're attempting to do now, which is look for a program for 2022. So I'll let Kathleen supplement with any thoughts or feedback that we've heard from the current vendors.
So obviously, the feeling is the same from a lot of the vendors. They're sad, they're frustrated, historically, and the customers as well. They're just concerned that it's the end of the market, that we're not going to continue the market. And I just try to keep an uplift atmosphere that it's the building that's selling and that we're definitely going to try and move the market somewhere else. I did have a vendor, I had a vendor meeting and I included management, and a third of the vendors attended. And it was a round table and just getting their thoughts. They're the ones that are there. They're the ones being affected. And the consensus was they would like to stay with a Saturday, maybe later hours, if it would happen to be outdoors, later hours and not 6 a.m., but maybe an 8 to 1, something around that. Of course, our food vendors are concerned, hoping we can find something indoor. But we did let them know that it is rather difficult to find another structure, another building that's set up the way the current one is, to have grills and hoods and so on. And it would be an expense, a rather large expense, if there was an empty building somewhere and then we structured it the same way and equipped it the same way. But that we would look, we would try, and we're trying to accommodate every vendor. We don't want to lose vendors. That's not the idea. So most of them are still pretty happy. I know, again, they are frustrated. We're still moving along with December. If you've been in there, we've had, this past Saturday had a magician. The Barbara Ingram had singers come in. This Saturday is Santa. We've had door prizes. I had children's giveaway baskets. So we're still just trying to keep everything in an uplift, holiday mood. And if anybody that's negative and thinks that it's closing as of December 24 because of the newspaper article, I just assure them that that's not the date that we're closing. And we did have all vendors sign, and they're well aware that they will receive at least a 30-day notice. And so I just say, have you received a 30-day notice yet? And they'll say no. And I said, don't worry about it. And of course, it just happens that December 25th and January 1st is a Saturday. So after this Saturday, we will be closed for those 2 Saturdays. So that's 3 weeks of work days that the market is closed. But we will reopen again January 8th, and I've made sure everyone knows that. And I'm already starting to plan, and I haven't had a chance to talk to you about it yet. So just try and do some sort of theme to January of not a New Year's resolution, because we know we don't always keep our resolutions, but some sort of revitalize, think of yourself, it's a new year, maybe, I don't know, I have some ideas, I'm not going to throw them out there yet, but just something so that there's a theme and something to look forward to in January, because that's kind of a lull in retail anyway. So we're just hoping that you will give us some guidance on what you feel out of this presentation so we can move forward and try and find a new home.
So we want to open it up for discussion of the options that we presented.
I do have one question about the past couple of Saturdays. Have you noticed an increase in foot traffic to the market, or is it decreased based on some of the articles that have come out and feedback?
Sure. I would say there's not an increase, but not a decrease either. And some of that, I think, in the beginning was just they were curious and they were coming in to see what they could hear. But it is the holiday, and it's very busy. And most of the vendors are satisfied with their sales, and the customers are making comment that they're glad that everything at least still looks busy and warming to them, you know, when they come in, so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Just, I for one like the University Plaza idea of the outside events. Have we talked with Marcosi maybe to have the Easter and the inside things maybe in the university itself, on the first floor, or in the?
It's a great idea. We haven't yet spoken to him, but that's certainly
I mean,
something we
there's
can talk
definitely
about.
area in there for
And it's a
people to
Saturday.
get out of the weather and everything.
And it's a Saturday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
so.
Does it,
Go ahead.
does it have to be a permanent location? Like, could it go from University Plaza or Culture Trail or Former Stables, or looking for something more like consistent? Is that the
I think
best
the
way?
consistency is going to help with the marketing. One of the challenges of University Plaza is that it's often booked on select Saturdays for annual events that take place there. So the market, if it was chosen to be in University Plaza, would need to take a break on those Saturdays. So that creates a bit of inconsistency and disruption to the flow for the vendors. Less so with fairgrounds stalls, to the number of Saturdays that is booked. I think you could work around the yard sale schedule a little
Put
bit.
one together too.
Yes,
Yeah, it
and
could be
yes, make it
incorporated
collaborative.
The only thing about the stables, it just seems so far, just
Removed.
seems so
It's not
removed.
centralized.
Yeah, it is.
That's the only thing about that. And as far as the cultural trailing, with the stadium going in, then what does that look like for construction?
Well, you know, we have a plaza going in behind,
Well,
at
that's
the end
true.
of the cultural trail
There's that.
Yes,
that isn't booked up for events yet.
right?
Good idea.
But it wants to, I mean,
Wants to be.
Yeah.
It's a little tucked behind until 4353 West Washington Street is fully redeveloped and the pedestrian access through there. It's a little tucked behind,
Okay.
but certainly part of the cultural trail.
I mean, even the Elizabeth Hay, like a parking lot, you know, it's not exactly perfect, but I know that a lot of other farmers markets are in just like a parking lot. In Berkeley
Well, we have
Springs, in
those, what,
Frederick.
Thursday events that we used to do in the square, right? We still do that, correct?
Yeah,
We
on
do
the
Thursdays,
square.
Right, yeah.
If any of you were able to come down to Chris Kindle on Friday evening or Saturday,
That's what I was
you would basically see what a farmer's market would look like, and it was an extremely nice setup area there for that. They had about 20, I think she said 27 vendors in University Plaza, and they were prepared, I think they originally had 30 to 35, which would have fit in there, so that was pretty much what a market could look like in University Plaza.
We contacted Bridge of Life Church has
I mean,
a commercial kitchen. So I'm wondering if they would maybe partner with us on Saturdays for Jeff and Debbie's and the other
Yeah, do you
place to
want-
use to cook out of. I mean, if we did,
43 to 53.
who's he talking to?
He's doing his own thing.
Okay.
The front facade.
I don't know
State of
what's
the
happening.
plaza, state of the plaza.
Okay.
Right, right. But we're not talking a year. Right. That's why.
Yep.
You said the square, I mean, could we put it in the square like the pop-up shops used to be? We constantly tell people we want them to come downtown and put more foot traffic. That would certainly bring people into our core. And if Bridge of Life would be willing to partner, that would be all kind of right there. I think it would be cool in the square.
It would be
All
too.
four
All
corners
four
have
corners.
vendors.
Are we going to, we talked about food trucks and allowing that opportunity for, you know, the funding, the grant, right?
Right.
So whatever we decide is going to have to be able to accommodate that option as well. If they don't,
You got a parking lot there, according to right beside Bridge of Life, that,
Yeah, Mike's parking
yeah,
lot.
could house a
Parking
food
with
truck.
Mike and the
Yeah.
food truck there.
Right.
Food truck can't be within so many feet of restaurant.
If they go with the vendor license, but if they're part of a city event,
Oh,
then
okay.
those regulations don't apply.
well, not to
I was gonna say, a
mention,
lot of food trucks when we have city events downtown, you know, we have.
If they're part of that event, then they aren't required to comply with, if it was an individual vendor permit for that, just that food truck.
but I'm also thinking that some of the restaurants get a little upset if there are food trucks. You know, and so we've allowed food trucks into this opportunity, into the farmer's market. So if we put them too close to the restaurants, we could be creating a little bit of a,
But what's
Tension.
open on Saturday morning, 9 to 1 downtown?
Yeah.
I mean,
We some do it for lunch, but, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I just think that we just need
By that time,
to
it's
be, we just need to be
wrapping up.
cognizant of, you know,
The
we've
other-
heard that.
And if it was every Saturday, they might.
Then
get
you
a
got
little-
Elizabeth Hagerson, and you could put her in the restaurants on that side, except for Thai rice. I'm just spitballing.
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, brainstorming is great. The parking is also what we keep going back to. It's like, oh, this is great, but what about the
There's a lot of
parking?
parking, apparently. That's what they said. There's like a lot of.
Ton of parking, Elizabeth
Yeah,
Hagerson.
there's 1,200 over
Yeah,
there.
1,200
Yeah, for now.
I think with the square, you'd have some challenges on the number of vendors you could get in the square, plus you'd have probably a power issue on the square. You wouldn't? There wouldn't be, as far as plug-ins or,
Yeah.
oh, okay, good, good. So the other thing about USMH would be, if we're gonna talk to Mark Halsey, would be across the street, they have their culinary
Right.
a place that has a beautiful kitchen in it that perhaps could be used for food. So maybe that's another thing we could talk with him about. Which would be directly across the street from the plaza.
That's why I was
Right.
thinking the plaza.
Culinary.
I mean, I like that
I
idea.
didn't want to bring that part up.
So does University Plaza kind of rise to the top of exploration with some of these others as backups as we keep working on this?
In
I
my
think
mind,
there's
it
too many
does,
events
But I
there.
also like the plaza that's going in behind the theater.
Okay. Yep.
As maybe the location, once it's all said and done, and, you know, 6, 7 months from now, whatever that
And-
time.
There's no
frame
real
is.
power in the Hatters Plaza. I mean, it's a big open space, but there's no real power that's even close to it. There might be some between Washington Street to the plaza, along that walkway, there's gonna be some, but I think in the plaza itself, there's,
In University Plaza.
yeah, no.
Hatters Plaza.
The new one.
I think power there will be very, very limited.
But how much power does an outdoor farmer's market
It's a large
actually
open
need?
space.
We talked about concerts and stuff in that.
Not much.
There's some along the trail, but you're talking about power here, in a
Right.
big open space, if you have a vendor over there, there's
Say no.
power here.
I think it's an amenity, you decide whether you want to have or not.
I just don't think that it's something that, you know, is the primary focus. I don't think that an outdoor farmer's market is going to require, like, a lot of
Ton
power.
of power.
They like to have,
If it's during daylight hours, they don't need lights, and that's.
Right. And most people are using, like, you know, their square or however to
Mhm.
operate their transactions, or cash, or whatever they're doing.
yeah, in the market right now, all those that sell the baked goods typically have either a full-size refrigerator or small refrigerator, so they're not icing down into a cooler, which they would have to do for an outside. So it's nice that they use it for that. But outside of that, most of the crafters and stuff don't use power.
Well, they currently leave that in the market now.
And they leave, yes.
That wouldn't
So
be-
I don't
no matter
know
where they
if
go.
they brought a small, well, some of them have those, they're only about this tall, and they put it up on the counter, so some might wanna bring a small one maybe, but,
Right.
but just thinking when you were saying how many people would need it, that right now what they're doing is mostly the bakery people,
So
you know,
limited.
that use the outlets.
Okay. What if-
So what would happen if there was an event there that Saturday, no farmer's market?
Or we switch it to
Yeah.
Elizabeth Hager parking lot or something, or the square. Maybe the squares will fall back on certain times.
And I know this isn't popular, but, I mean, how many events are scheduled on a Sunday? There's farmers markets on Sunday all over. It's very common. So, I know that that's not the ideal option, but if we're looking at an ideal space and at the University Plaza, we move it to a Sunday, I'm not sure how many less events are there on a Sunday. I'd be interested to know how many events were on a Saturday
Right.
during those hours in
Yeah.
2020.
Exactly.
Right.
Whatever year we're in. Was it
That started
2021? I
early.
don't know what year it is.
You
I
can't
think,
count.
I think it's
20
not the
may have
events,
events.
it's the setup time.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
20 was the year of COVID.
And tear down and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, just some plain devil's advocate, the square.
I like the square too.
I do too.
Well,
I
I'm
like
not
this-
opposed to
yeah.
it.
No, me
So,
either.
you know, but again, I mean, and for me, I guess it's more about, being located in an area where traffic isn't gonna be a problem crossing the street or doing any of that kind of stuff. But again, the square, I mean, we had markets in the square in the past, and they've been successful, and people have liked them, and, the people have served hot foods and done all kinds of stuff.
Usually in the summer, we have, yep.
Is there a limit on how many vendors does it accommodate in the square?
I don't have that information right now, but we certainly
Yeah.
can start to quantify
I
it.
mean, you figure in that space on four corners there, can you correct me if I'm wrong, wouldn't you average maybe 5 a corner?
That's-
So
I'm
there's
thinking
20
to 25.
vendors right there.
They don't bring tents.
No, I don't.
Yeah, if they just do tables, you could get more. Yeah.
Stop doing. What about the Applause catering, like back in that parking lot area? There's parking, there's some
Section.
visibility as you're going,
Yeah.
there's some visibility as you're going
Something's going on.
down the street, you can see it. Just another option,
Thinking that too.
parking.
Power.
Food truck capability. Food truck capability. I like it.
So I think this gives us enough to kind of continue to,
Yeah, we could be here all night though, and
Aren't you? Yeah, really.
Yeah.
I mean, we were blessed to begin with, now we're.
Yeah.
You have plenty of locations.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm hearing, University Plaza, Hatters Plaza, which is to the rear on the Cultural Trail, Public Square, and possible portions of the central parking lot. I'm
Yep.
hearing like four. And,
More possibilities.
yep, for us to keep working on and come back to you.
Sounds good.
And university systems itself.
Right, in
inside.
partnership,
Right.
yep.
Do you need these other things discussed?
Is there a thought on vendor fee or no fee?
My thought is to ramp it up, like if, to start out with no fees, because we're taking the whole thing and changing it. So if the vendor is there maybe for 6 months, and then there's a fee that kind of graduates. That's just an option, because we're changing the entire model.
I think we should wait and see the final details to find out how much it's gonna cost us too. 'Cause I think
Yeah.
that should play a factor in it. If we have to purchase whatever, you know, I mean, that could weigh in the cost.
It helps with attendance too. Sometimes if you have a little something into it, you're more apt to the attendance. And trying to not make a lot of paperwork out of it because we have to create a new agreement as it is. And so as we were talking about it before was the enforcement of the agreement and not, so are we going to make this a 1 year? Is it going to be 6 months? You know, what's the agreement going to be? And if it's a seasonal, which would be a yearly, is there going to be opportunity that they can not be there 4 times out of the season? Or like, just exactly how would we do this so that every week the coordinator is not wondering, who do I have this week? And how many do I have this week? And how many do I have this week? You know, do I have opportunity to try and get more this week? Oops. You know, because you would probably want to have some consistency. Say if it was out in the square and you said it accommodates 20, it'd be nice to always have 20 and not 1 week it's 5 because 15 decided it wasn't a good day for them. And then in a week, you're trying to scurry to bring more vendors in. So just trying to keep consistency for the customers as well. So with an agreement and more specifics in there, it helps to be more structured, I think.
And I am okay with the hours obviously changing, because 6 AM sounds miserable.
8 o'clock, later than
And I am awake, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but
You are.
I'm not going to, I am awake. Emily. I'm not
Yes,
awake.
she's awake.
There's people waiting at the door at 6 o'clock to get in. There are actually people 5:30, 5:45, waiting to get in. It used to open at 5. If any of y'all went there when it was early hours.
Thank you. You guys good?
I think we're good.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for all the feedback. That was great.
Nothing for me.
Shelley? Bob? Comments? Tara? Takesha?
I just want to say, happy 8th birthday tomorrow to my grandson, Aries. I'll be really happy to watch this and hear that.
All right.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Aries.
birthday, guys.
Birthday. I just wanted to say thanks to Parks and Rec and to Randy Lee and everyone else who had the holiday ham drive on Saturday, and for HFD for coming and helping out. That was awesome. And I wanted to say thanks to Crumpy's Donuts, who had me as their guest donut maker last night to promote the Maryland Theater and the Crumpy's and Middleton Valley Bank donut drop this
There's
year
absolutely no
on New Year's
evidence of
Eve.
that because we did not get donuts this morning.
Did you eat any?
I had one. Layla had 3.
There you go.
Anyways, and with that, can I get a motion to go in executive session for the reasons stated?
So moved.
Second.
Shirley could have it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Hello and welcome to Council Wrap. I'm Wes Decker, joined by Jill Thompson, the Director of the Department of Community and Economic Development. Jill, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I want to talk a little bit more about City Farmers Market, which certainly has been a topic of conversation for a number of reasons. And I'd like to go back to the genesis of the sale or the contract on 25 West Church Street. I talked to Doug about this a few weeks ago, as you well know. Can you just kind of take us through, the reason I want to start there is, can you kind of take us through how all of that developed? Because when the city puts a property on the competitive negotiated sale process list, it's, we're not thinking it's going to sell tomorrow. We're not knowing at all when it's going to sell. So can you kind of walk us through how all of that played out?
Yeah, it's true. It does take time to make a real estate transaction happen. And the mayor and city council looked at this over a year ago. It was in October of 2020 that the council reviewed the utilization of the property as an asset to the city and made the decision to consider proposals for the sale of the property through the competitive negotiated sale process. So while a number of people looked at the building over the year, we did receive a very viable offer to purchase the property and have gone under contract with Smoketown Brewery under the local name of Hub City Brewing to utilize the property as a manufacturing for their product, but also an arts and entertainment venue. And so it's a higher and better use and utilization of the property, and we're currently under contract in a study period for the exploration of the potential and likely sale of the building sometime in next year.
I know I don't have Michelle here at the table, so I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot with numbers here, but maybe if you can just kind of talk in a roundabout way about the amount of money that the city was sort of putting into that building for use of the building, certainly as the administrative offices for Hagerstown Fire Department, but then just several hours a week on one day for the City Farmers Market versus the investment that we'll be experiencing with the purchase and sale of that building now. Can you just kind of compare and contrast those a little bit?
Yeah, just roughly in the range of $75,000 to $90,000 a year, with the city general fund underwriting the program of the farmers market and the property. And that's not to include large capital expenditures when, should the property need a roof replacement or a large capital expenditure that an old building like that would likely need going forward.
Yeah, and the reason that I say that is, for many, it doesn't matter. I mean, some of those who have been sort of the vocal minority, and I don't say that to be flip, it's just that the support for the market has not necessarily been there. I mean, it's sort of like me, and I'll use myself as an example because I literally live right down the street from Municipal Stadium, and I'm a huge baseball fan. But I can count on two hands the number of times, and this is on me certainly, that I went to a Hagerstown Suns game over the final 5-6 years that the Suns were in town. Why didn't I go? I don't know. Was I somewhat upset when the Suns' run came to an end in Hagerstown? I was, but at the same time, to some degree, I have to look at myself and say, well, I didn't support that, but I thought, well, it will always be there, because it become a tradition. I mean, the longer it's there, we kind of take things for granted as human beings. And I know, I also want to establish here that this was not the intention of the city to be finished with Hagerstown City Farmers Market, and that's where we can kind of get into what we had discussed earlier this evening, and that is, what will the new iteration of the farmers market be? This will be a brand new start, but this is also something that's been around for 238 years at this point. So you talk about the ability to just say, hey, something will always be there. but this seems like a good fresh start to me. And I think the conversation tonight, it was very interesting to hear some of the options that weren't necessarily put on the table for mayor and council.
I think so too, and I think it's a great discussion, and it validates the fact that a farmer's market is a community amenity. So the farmer's market, the new idea is to create an outdoor seasonal market, which you see in a lot of communities, and it still gives a chance for vendors to sell their wares, and it gives a chance for the community to come together and meet each other at the market, and that even the possibility that you may go to the market just by chance to bump into a neighbor that you haven't seen in a while. So that sense of community and the sense that the farmer's market is an amenity for our community is something that was certainly validated tonight, and with some ideas of how we could start a new market in a slightly different format. But we hope with the continuation of some of the existing or many of the existing vendors in a new format.
In the venue where the market was housed, the 25 West Church Street, had it sort of, in your mind, and this is kind of an opinion question, but had it kind of outlived the purpose that the market originally had? Again, going back over that history, I mean, when something, obviously a lot changes since 1783, but do you think it had gotten to that point where maybe this is just the impetus to inject new life into the market in a new place?
Yeah, I think it's an evolution, and we recognize that transition is challenging and transition is hard. And there certainly are always going to be great memories of that building and the history of the building. But we hope to create with a new market the continuation of that community amenity. Some of the ideas talked about tonight is certainly the proximity of a new market to our downtown and what that can contribute to downtown revitalization and downtown sense of community and a place where people gather for events. The discussion included looking at University Plaza as a potential location, also our downtown public square, possibly setting up the market right on all four corners of the square, using downtown parking lot, specifically the central parking lot, and also the new plaza called Hatter's Plaza on the Cultural Trail, which is a new gathering place right in our downtown. So we need to do a little more work and to take the feedback that we heard from the mayor and council tonight and look at those site options, as well as continue to listen and explore what shape and format a new farmer's market could take.
I know you and your staff put a lot of time and thought into coming up with the proposed sites that you presented to mayor and council this evening. Anything surprise you about the feedback that you heard from mayor and council, especially in a positive way?
I think that certainly we heard tonight the idea of integrating food trucks. So is there the opportunity, especially as we know that some vendors may come out of the market and may be operating not just in a booth format, but possibly in a food truck format. So taking that into consideration and hopefully identifying a site that can help with the continuation and certainly the national trend and the excitement that people have with both visiting downtown restaurants and then also trying food trucks at times.
Yeah, I think that would be a neat addition, because I love to see when there's a food truck out and about, whether it's, for a restaurant or someplace where I've eaten previously. Let's see what they've got, that they're bringing, or, just trying any type of food like that, because to me, I'm all about eating. So, I mean, that's all good to me. So I love that. One question that I wanted to ask you, if you have some knowledge on this, is, Kathleen alluded to it, talked about her discussion with the vendors and keeping them in the loop on what's happening, and also, gleaning where they stand, some of their suggestions and things like that for this new market that we're looking at. My question is, how vital, or do you know how vital it is to some of these vendors to be part of a farmer's market like this? Because we talk about the fact that, the market hasn't had the support that it's needed really to sustain it. But at the same time, some of these vendors, have really expressed that, this is something they want to continue to be part of. So, can you put your finger on the pulse of how some of them are feeling about this and what it means to them?
Yeah, we're certainly listening to our vendors. We've had one vendor meeting that I was a part of, and there's another one coming up, and we're very much committed to good communication so they understand the timing of the real estate transaction and the information that we can share with them along the way. I think, to your question, I think vendors are interested in supporting and providing their products and services to our residents in the community. So that they're looking for opportunities for continued business ventures. Some want to do it on a limited basis. Others are looking to grow their businesses. Some could be aspiring entrepreneurs that may graduate from a farmer's market into permanent retail space. And we do have a mix of different types of vendors, and we recognize that. So what we want to do with any farmer's market and with any of our downtown programs is certainly support small businesses. That's what our department is really about, is how we can help a small business owner be successful and feel supported.
Are you welcoming suggestions, say, from the community as it relates to this? It seems to me that anything's on the table right now because it's still rather fluid in figuring out exactly, what this will turn into. What it's going to be, where it's going to be, and all of those things. So can someone, provide information to you as it relates to that?
Sure. So we welcome any comments, and we have a general email address for our department, which is dced@hagerstownmd.org. The initials stand for Department of Community and Economic Development, so dced@hagerstownmd.org. And we welcome any thoughts or comments from the citizens and from people who want to support our efforts. Specifically, I welcome any comments about the 4 sites that the mayor and city council narrowed today, to try to figure out which one rises to the top.
Yeah. I love the one at Fairgrounds Park, but that one got no love at all. So I guess that one's kind of off the table, it would appear. The one concern that I would have with some of the other ones is just, how will the weather play a role? Because, we never know what we're going to get from one day to the next, let alone one Saturday to the next. So to me, that's a little bit of a concern there, but I'm sure all of that will get worked out in the end. Just one final question for you. What would you like people to take away from this at this point in time? How should people be feeling about this as far as you see it at the moment?
Right. I think especially as we look to 2022, which is not too far away, to be hopeful for the future and to recognize while we don't have all the answers today, we're working on putting a plan together for a new farmers market in 2022. So I think our citizens and our supporters should really look forward with hope and optimism for the exciting new things to come.
Yeah, I think you said the right word there. It is exciting. Jill, thank you very much for your time. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Same to you, Wes. Merry Christmas.
And to all of you out there, the same. I will see you in 2022. For tonight, that's a wrap. That's Council Wrap.